Hello, I'm Nick Crawley. Welcome to this Bible for Life ministry, and in this short video I'm doing an introduction to the prophetic book of Ezekiel. Now this is one of the four major prophets in the Old Testament, and to be honest I'm amazed that it is given so little attention. This is a book I absolutely love. It's one of the deepest books, if that's a fair thing to say, one of the deepest books in the entire Bible. And it, in a very real sense, it has to be experienced. In Ezekiel, we have a man encountering God. But it's a long book, it's 48 chapters, and some of the chapters are themselves extremely long, they're detailed, and the problem is to get lost in the detail, and I think that's what happens. It's a little bit sort of like travelling or walking through the outback. It's just vast, and sometimes people get lost and wonder what's going on, and then they give up. So the key thing is to keep to the highlights, and then if you get the structure, then you can go into the detail much more easily, and you'll see how it makes sense. Now, Ezekiel was a priest. He was born into a priestly family, and as he grew up, he had every expectation that he would spend all his life serving in the temple in Jerusalem. But in 593 BC, the city was overrun by the Babylonians, and the king took away the leading men and women and took them off to Babylon. And so Ezekiel found himself in a refugee camp outside Babylon, thousands of miles from where he wanted to be, and with the whole prospect of serving in the temple taken away from him. And in this context, he encounters God. And the book of Ezekiel it describes a number of these encounters, and they are powerful. The very first chapter is an extraordinary encounter with God. It's quite difficult to understand what's going on, but and in that encounter, Ezekiel is commissioned. And it's a powerful commission, and it opens up the whole book. And Ezekiel, the book of Ezekiel is basically formed in three parts. The first 24 chapters are prophecies by Ezekiel in Babylon, prophesying that the city of Jerusalem will again, for a second time, be destroyed and overrun, and in this case the temple will be destroyed as well. And that's the first thing, and then that actually happens, and chapter 24 opens with the very announcement that is actually beginning to happen. And then then there's a sort of a break in the middle where there's a whole lot of prophecies to the foreign nations, and then the turning point in chapter 33, this fantastic new vista of prophecy opening up, God's blessings and all the truths, and this mighty work of God God's going to achieve through the new covenant. And Ezekiel is the prophet of the Spirit and the new covenant, and this is what bursts forward in from chapters 33 onwards. Now, as I mentioned, it's a complicated book. It has to do with holiness. It has to do with sin. Here is a man who's devoted with a deep, deep love of the temple and of worshipping God and of serving God, and he finds himself far removed from that situation. And there's a sense in which Ezekiel himself has been captured by God. He is loyal to God in a way which makes him other, makes him separate, makes him holy in himself over to God. And although he's an unusual man, he's got a speech impediment. He seems to be slightly strange. People don't relate to him properly. But in that context, God uses this man in a most unusual way, and uses him for his purposes. Now, the key thing that I love about this book is what it speaks of atonement. And in your study, you need to look at the change that takes place in chapter 24 when two covenants end. There is the covenant with the nation that ends through the ending of the temple and the destruction of the temple and the exile of the people. That's the first covenant. And the second covenant that ends is Ezekiel's own marriage with his wife. And he and his wife go through in a prophetic fulfillment what Christ is going to one day do in the ending of the old covenant and the beginning of the new. It is a fantastic prophecy of the atoning work of Christ. And then from chapter 33 onwards, we have a new pastor, a new king is given. The Spirit is given, and there's got this lovely picture of the dry bones, and then the river pouring out of the temple and blessing all nations. And this is the most wonderful description of the new covenant and all Jesus is going to fulfill. So the book of Ezekiel is about worship. It's about holiness. It's about dedication to God. And I think as you get into it, you will love this. It's communicating through experience and encounter some of these deep, deep values. It's a rich, rich book, and I strongly recommend it to you.